Why most traders stay broke. I almost did too. I want to say something that the trading industry spends billions of dollars trying to make sure you never hear. Being broke as a trader is not a strategy problem. It is not a signal problem. It is not a time frame problem, a broker problem, a capital problem, or an indicator problem. It is a you problem. And I say that with no judgment, because it was a me problem too, for longer than I am comfortable admitting. I sat exactly where you are sitting right now, watching videos, buying courses, switching strategies, blaming spreads, blaming algorithms, blaming everything in the market and nothing inside myself. And the whole time, every single week, I was getting broker. Not because the market was unfair, not because the system was rigged against small accounts, but because I was carrying a set of invisible beliefs, invisible habits, and an invisible identity that guaranteed failure, no matter what strategy I put on top of it. Think of it this way. You can pour clean water into a cracked cup all day long. The cup will never be full, and the problem is never the water. I was a cracked cup, and nobody told me that. Nobody told me that until I told myself. Today, I'm going to tell you, not to discourage you, not to make you feel small, but because the truth, the real, uncomfortable, nobody wants to say it truth, is the only thing that ever actually changes anything. So stay with me, because this is not the video you expected, and it might be the one you needed. Here's the story the trading world tells you about why traders fail. They didn't find the right strategy yet. They're overleveraged. They don't have enough starting capital. They traded the wrong market. They needed a better mentor. They just need more screen time. Every single one of those explanations is outside of you. Every single one places the solution somewhere in the market, somewhere in a product, somewhere in a course or a community or a different broker. And that story, that external story, is worth billions of dollars to the people selling it. Because as long as you believe the problem is out there, you will keep buying solutions out there. New course, new signal group, new prop firm challenge, new strategy, new everything except a new you. Here's what nobody tells you. The research on trading failure is not primarily about strategy selection or market knowledge. It's about behavior, about decision-making under stress, about self-regulation and emotional management, and the capacity to follow rules when every instinct screams to break them. A study published in the Journal of Finance found that individual traders as a group lose money, not randomly, but systematically, in ways that track almost perfectly with known psychological biases: overconfidence, loss aversion, the disposition effect, the tendency to sell winners too early and hold losers too long. These are not strategy flaws. These are human flaws. They don't get fixed by a new indicator. They get fixed by becoming a different kind of human. And that becoming is what this video is about. There are 5 reasons most traders stay broke. 5 invisible walls that no strategy can break through, because the walls are not in the market, they are inside the person sitting at the screen. I almost stayed behind every single one of them. Let me show you what they look like and what it takes to get through them. Reason 1. They are addicted to learning and allergic to executing. Let me describe someone. They have 3 trading books on their desk, 2 more on order. They're in 4 YouTube channels, including this one, and they watch new content every day. They've completed 2 courses. They're in a Discord with 3,000 other traders. They can explain Elliott wave, Wyckoff methodology, smart money concepts, ICT theory, and classic technical analysis. And their live account, the one they funded 18 months ago, has barely been touched. Maybe a few impulsive trades here and there, but mostly they're still preparing, still researching, still waiting until they know enough. This person is not a student of trading. They are hiding inside education. And I say that with full compassion, because I was this person, completely. Education felt like progress. Opening a new book felt like moving forward. Finishing a course gave me a dopamine hit that felt almost indistinguishable from the feeling I imagined making a profitable trade would feel like. But it was a simulation, a very comfortable, very convincing simulation of growth, with none of the actual risk, and therefore none of the actual development. Old behavior. Consuming information as a substitute for execution, treating knowledge as the destination rather than the map. New behavior. Treating each piece of learning as something that must be tested in real conditions, with real consequences, even if small, within a defined time window. The psychology behind this is something researchers call pseudo-productivity, the experience of feeling busy and useful while actually avoiding the primary uncomfortable task. For traders, the primary uncomfortable task is putting real money on the line and facing real outcomes. Everything else, the charts, the books, the videos, can become an elaborate system of avoiding that moment. Let me tell you about someone named Adaze. Adaze had been studying trading for 14 months when we first spoke. She knew more theory than most traders I'd met. She could break down a chart with sophisticated precision. Her back tests were meticulous. Her strategy, on paper, had a positive expectancy. She hadn't taken a live trade in 4 months. When I asked her why, she said, "I just don't feel ready yet. There's still a lot I don't fully understand." I asked her, what would ready look like? What would you need to know that you don't know now? She went quiet for a long time. Then she said, "I don't actually know." Because there was no answer. Ready wasn't a destination she was approaching. It was a moving horizon she was using to keep herself safe from the risk of being wrong in real time. 2 weeks later, she opened a micro account with $100, not to make money, to feel what it was like to have skin in the game, to experience the emotional weight of a real trade, to gather data about herself that no course could give her. She told me later that her first live trade, a $2 risk, terrified her more than she expected, and that terror was the most valuable education she'd ever received, because it showed her exactly what she needed to work on. Not her strategy, herself. The more I practice, the luckier I get. Gary Player. He wasn't talking about luck. He was talking about the kind of preparation that only comes from doing, not studying doing, but doing. The market will teach you things about yourself that no book ever will, but only if you let it. If you are sitting on a strategy you haven't fully committed to in real conditions because you don't feel ready, type "not ready" in the comments, and know that the moment you type it, you've already started becoming ready. Reason 2. They treat every loss as evidence that something is wrong. This might be the most dangerous mindset in all of trading, and it is so deeply wired into us that most people never even question it. Here is the belief: if I lose, something is broken. Either my strategy is broken, my analysis was wrong, the market did something it shouldn't have, or I made a mistake. Loss equals malfunction. And on the surface, that sounds rational. Loss bad, win good, right? But here's what that belief does to you in practice. It means every loss triggers a repair response. You start adjusting the strategy, widening stops, tightening entry criteria, adding a filter, removing a filter, moving to a different time frame. Something must change because something is clearly wrong. Except nothing is wrong. You just lost a trade. And in a probabilistic system, losing trades are not malfunctions. They are scheduled maintenance. They are the cost of doing business. They are as structurally inevitable as a flip of a coin landing on tails. The problem is not that you lost. The problem is what you believe losing means. Old behavior, treating every loss as diagnostic data about the strategy. as evidence that something needs to change. New behavior, treating losses as statistical events, expected, budgeted for, and meaningful only in aggregate over a large sample, not individually. The psychology here is called outcome bias, and it is absolutely devastating in trading. We judge the quality of decisions by their outcomes rather than by the quality of the process at the time of the decision. A correct, well-reasoned, properly executed trade that loses is not a bad trade. It is a correct trade with an adverse outcome. Those are completely different things, but outcome bias makes them feel identical. And when they feel identical, when every loss feels like a mistake, you start changing things that didn't need changing. You interrupt your own process at the exact moment it needs consistency to work. You become, in effect, your own worst enemy, not through laziness or stupidity, but through a completely understandable but completely incorrect belief about what a loss means. Here is a thought I want to plant somewhere deep in your mind. A surgeon who follows the correct procedure and loses the patient is not a bad surgeon. A pilot who follows protocol and encounters an unexpected mechanical failure is not a bad pilot. In every other high-stakes profession, we understand intuitively that correct process and positive outcome are not the same thing, and that correct process is the only variable the professional can actually control. But in trading, we forget this completely, every time. The quality of a decision is not determined by its outcome. Annie Duke, Thinking in Bets. Annie Duke is a former World Series of Poker champion and a decision scientist, and she has spent her career trying to teach people this one thing. You cannot judge the quality of your thinking by what happened next, because what happens next is partly, sometimes largely, outside your control. What is inside your control is your process, your adherence to your rules, your risk management, your execution. Own the process completely, accept the outcomes as data. That shift from outcome-focused to process-focused is one of the most difficult and most transformative transitions a trader can make, and most traders never make it. They stay stuck in the outcome loop, adjusting and readjusting, never giving any approach enough time to reveal its true statistical character. I want you to think right now about the last time you changed your strategy because of a loss, not a series of losses, just one trade. If that's happened to you, and I know it has because it has happened to all of us, I want you to sit with what that cost you. What might have happened if you'd stayed the course? Reason 3. They are trading their financial anxiety, not their strategy. Let me be honest with you about something that almost nobody talks about. Most people come to trading with a financial wound. Not all of them, but most. They come because they are stressed about money, because they feel behind, because they want to fix something that feels broken in their financial life, because they need this to work. And that need, that desperate, urgent, anxious need for trading to fix a financial problem is one of the most reliable predictors of trading failure that exists. Because the market is merciless to needy people. When you need the money, when a loss doesn't just mean a statistical setback but means the rent, the car payment, the dream, the proof that you made the right choice, your decision-making changes completely. You can't hold trades to their targets because the floating profit feels too real to risk. You can't cut losses at your stop because the realized loss feels too final to accept. You size up after wins because you're trying to accelerate a timeline that anxiety has set for you. You no longer trade the market, you are trading your fear. Old behavior, bringing financial urgency to the screen and allowing it to override the strategy, taking profits early, avoiding stops, sizing up on emotional impulse. New behavior, separating completely the financial pressure of your life from the mechanical execution of the strategy, treating each trade as a unit of process, not a solution to a life problem. The psychology here is well documented in behavioral finance as need-based decision-making, the phenomenon where the subjective importance of an outcome distorts the evaluation of the decision. The higher the stakes feel, the worse the decisions become, not because you're less intelligent under pressure, but because your threat detection system, your amygdala, starts overriding your prefrontal cortex. You stop thinking strategically. You start reacting instinctively. And instinct in trading is almost always wrong. Let me be direct about something. If you are trading money you cannot afford to lose, you are not trading. You are gambling with your nervous system as the casino. You will never execute cleanly with money that has an emotional weight attached to it. Not because you're weak, but because that is how human neurology works. Under perceived threat, the brain optimizes for survival, not for strategy. The traders who developed genuine consistency almost universally describe a point where they became emotionally detached from the money in their trading account. Not because it stopped mattering, but because they stopped treating each trade as a financial event and started treating it as a procedural event. The account was no longer their savings, they were their tool. And you don't grieve when a tool shows wear, you maintain it and keep working. The key to trading success is emotional discipline. If intelligence were the key, there would be a lot more people making money trading. Victor Sperandado. That quote stops most people cold when they really read it, because we all want to believe this is an intelligence game, a knowledge game, a who has the best system game. But Victor Sperandado, a trader who turned 40,000 into 10 million over 18 years with only one losing year, is telling you that none of that matters without emotional discipline. And emotional discipline begins with removing the survival stakes from individual trades. If you're watching this and you recognize yourself in this, if you are trading money that matters too much, I need you to hear this without shame. Almost every trader has been here. The question is what you decide to do about it. Reason 4. They confuse activity with progress. Here is a pattern I watched in myself for almost a year before I recognized it. Every day I was busy, opening charts, scanning setups, analyzing price action, reading news, adjusting levels, taking trades, closing trades, journaling results, repeating. And the account was not growing. It was eroding, slowly, steadily, consistently. But I felt like I was working. I felt like I was doing everything right. I felt like the results would come because look at how much effort I was putting in. Here is what nobody tells you. In trading, activity is not correlated with results. Frequency of trading is not correlated with profitability. Hours on the screen are not correlated with consistency. In fact, for most retail traders, more activity produces worse results because more activity means more decisions, and more decisions means more opportunities for bias, emotion, and ego to insert themselves into the process. Old behavior, measuring trading progress by time spent, trades taken, and screens watched, equating effort with progress. New behavior, measuring trading progress exclusively by process adherence. How precisely did your behavior match your plan, and what does that tell you about what to do next? The psychology behind this is called effort justification, the cognitive tendency to attribute value to outcomes based on the effort invested in them, regardless of the actual quality of that effort. We believe that working harder should produce better results. In most fields, that's true enough to be a reasonable assumption. In trading, it's a trap. The best traders I've studied, not the most vocal, the most consistent, tend to trade less than you'd expect. They wait, they are selective. They can sit in front of a chart for 2 hours and take 0 trades because 0 valid setups appeared, and they feel completely fine about that, because they understand that not trading is sometimes the highest quality decision available. Meanwhile, the struggling trader opens the chart and needs to find something, needs to feel productive, needs the activity to justify the time. That need to act, that restlessness, costs more money than almost any single bad trade. It never was my thinking that made the big money for me. It always was my sitting. Got that? My sitting tight. Jesse Livermore. Jesse Livermore made and lost multiple fortunes in the early 20th century. He is considered one of the most gifted traders in history, and his most important insight, the one he kept learning the hard way, was that patience and stillness were worth more than any technical system he ever used. That was true in 1923. It is true right now. Reason 5. They are trying to win before they've learned how not to lose. This is the one that holds everything together, and it's the one that took me the longest to understand. Every new trader comes to the market focused on making money. It's natural, obvious, it's literally the point. But this focus on winning, on growing the account, on hitting targets, creates a blind spot around the most important skill in all of trading: capital preservation. Not in a passive, conservative sense, in an active, intentional, identity-level sense. The skill of protecting what you have until your edge asserts itself over a large enough sample size. Most traders lose not in one catastrophic blow-up, they lose in a slow bleed. A little oversize here, a slightly emotional trade there, a stop that gets moved just this once, an extra trade taken after the daily limit because this one looks too good to pass. None of it dramatic, all of it compounding. And beneath every single one of those decisions is the same impulse, the desire to win faster than the strategy allows. Old behavior. Treating risk management as a constraint on profits, something to be managed around when a trade looks particularly good. New behavior. Treating risk management as the primary strategy, the non-negotiable foundation that keeps you in the game long enough for your edge to work. The psychology here connects to what Ed Psychota called the survival imperative. Psychota, one of the original trend-following masters who reportedly turned $5,000 into $15 million over 12 years, argued that the primary job of a trader is not to make money. It is to survive, to remain capitalized, to stay in the game. Because a trader who stays in the game long enough with a genuine edge will eventually be profitable. But a trader who blows their account trying to accelerate the timeline never gets to find out. This is where the analogy of the cracked cup comes back. You can have the cleanest, purest water, the best strategy, but if the cup has cracks, if your risk management leaks, the cup will never fill. The water will always drain faster than it pours in. Fixing the cracks means this: respecting your stop every time, sizing correctly every time, stopping when the daily limit is hit every time. Not because you're afraid, but because you understand that consistency of process is the only environment in which an edge can do its work. Imagine becoming a trader for whom risk management is not a reluctant discipline, but a genuine value. Not something you do because the rule says so, but something you do because you understand in your bones that surviving is the prerequisite for everything else. The elements of good trading are cutting losses, and cutting losses. If you can follow these 3 rules, you may have a chance. Ed Psychota. 3 rules, all the same rule, because Psychota knew that most traders intellectually accept this and then spend their careers finding reasons why their particular trade, their particular setup, their particular situation is the exception. There are no exceptions. That's what makes the rule a rule. The year I almost became a statistic. I want to tell you about a specific period in my trading. It was month 11. I had been trading for almost a year, and by every reasonable measure, I should have quit. My account was down, significantly. Not catastrophically, I hadn't blown it, but I had lost more than half of my starting capital through a combination of everything I've described in this video. Impulsive trades, moved stops, sized up after losses trying to recover, abandoned strategies during losing streaks, traded money I couldn't emotionally afford to lose. I remember sitting at my desk on a Tuesday evening, charts open, and feeling something I'd never felt before in trading. Not frustration, not the hot anger of a bad loss, something colder, quieter. I felt done. Not angry done, not dramatic done, just empty. Like the belief that this was possible had quietly leaked out of me somewhere during the last 11 months, and I hadn't noticed until it was gone. I opened my trading journal, which I had been keeping inconsistently, writing in it only when things went well because looking at it after bad weeks felt too painful, and I read it from the beginning. And what I saw destroyed me a little, and then rebuilt me. Every single bad period, every cluster of losses, every stretch of poor performance was preceded by the same things. Trading when I was stressed about money outside of trading, increasing size after a losing streak to get back to even, taking trades that didn't fully meet my criteria because I felt like the market was about to move, skipping trades that did meet criteria because I was scared after a loss. I wasn't a victim of the market. I was a victim of myself, repeatedly, consistently, predictably. And there was one line in my journal, written about 4 months earlier, that stopped me cold. I had written it after a particularly bad week, and then apparently moved on without ever really sitting with it. It said, "I think the problem might be me. I think I am the reason this isn't working. I don't know what to do with that." I knew it. For 4 months I had known, and I had done nothing with that knowledge, because knowing is not the same as being ready to change, because change, real change, identity-level change, is painful in a way that awareness alone isn't. That night, I made a decision. Not a strategy decision, a person decision. I decided that whatever happened next, profitable or not, I was going to trade like someone who deserved to be profitable, someone who respected their rules, someone who made decisions based on process, not emotion, someone who could absorb a loss without flinching, someone who didn't need this trade to fix anything. I wasn't that person yet, but I decided to start acting like it, even before I felt like it, especially before I felt like it. The next morning, I reduced my position size by 60%, not because I was scared, because I wanted to remove the financial weight from the decision-making. I wrote my rules on a piece of paper and taped it to the wall next to my screen, not as a reminder, as a commitment. Every trade I took for the next 30 days, I wrote the rule it was based on before I took it. Month 12 was not dramatically profitable, but it was clean, consistent, and for the first time in almost a year, I ended the month having followed my process more often than I hadn't. Not rich, just right. And from that foundation, that small, unglamorous, deeply personal shift, everything that came after became possible. I want to say something directly to you now. The 5 reasons I've described in this video are not character flaws. They are not proof that you can't do this. They are not evidence of stupidity or weakness or poor judgment. They are the predictable, almost universal experiences of someone who entered an extremely demanding field without being told the truth about what the field actually demands. You were told it demands a good strategy. You were told it demands chart knowledge and technical analysis and the right broker and the right capital. Nobody told you it demands a complete reconstruction of your relationship with uncertainty, loss, money, effort, and identity. Nobody told you that the person who starts trading and the person who eventually trades consistently are not the same person, and that the journey between them is not an educational journey, it's a transformation journey. Transformation cannot be bought. It cannot be downloaded. It cannot be acquired through passive consumption of content, including this content. It happens through repeated, honest engagement with the actual conditions of trading. through facing your real reactions and choosing over and over to respond differently, through building a self that is more reliable, more consistent, more honest than the self that first sat down at these charts. That self is not better than you are right now, but it is different, meaningfully different, and you are not too far from it to reach it. The gap between who you are now and who you need to become is not as wide as it feels, but it is real, and nobody can cross it for you. Here's what I know about the people who eventually cross it. They are not the most talented. They are not the ones with the most starting capital or the most sophisticated setup or the most impressive educational background. They are the ones who got honest, who stopped blaming the market, who stopped hiding inside education, who looked at their journal or started one and faced what the data said about them, who made a quiet decision, alone, that the person they had been in the market was not the person they were going to be. That decision is available to you right now. Not after you find a better strategy, not after you save more capital, not after one more course. Right now. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Viktor Frankl. That space, between the market moving and your finger on the mouse, that is where your entire trading career lives. In that space is everything, and who you are in that space is the only thing that ultimately determines where you end up. I want to end with something honest. Most traders stay broke. Not because the market is impossible, not because the odds are too stacked, not because retail traders are structurally disadvantaged in some unfixable way. They stay broke because they never stop asking the market to change and start asking themselves to change. They keep pouring water into a cracked cup and wondering why it never fills. You now know what the cracks look like. You know what fills them. And here's what I need you to understand, really understand, not just intellectually register, about where you are right now. If you've been struggling, you are not further behind than you think. You are closer than you know. Because the traders who eventually make it all describe the same arc. Years of confusion, followed by a moment of genuine honesty, followed by slow, quiet, unglamorous transformation, followed by consistency that looks easy from the outside because it was built on a foundation nobody else could see. You are somewhere in that arc right now. Maybe at the confusion stage, maybe approaching the honesty stage, maybe already in the early part of the transformation, sitting there feeling it, not sure what to do with it. Wherever you are, keep going. Not frantically, not desperately, not with urgency driven by anxiety, but with the steady, patient commitment of someone who has decided, really decided, that they are no longer going to be the reason their own strategy doesn't work. Make that decision today. Not loudly, not dramatically, just decide. Before you leave, I want to ask you one question. Of the 5 reasons I described today, the addiction to learning without executing, the belief that every loss means something is broken, trading from financial anxiety, confusing activity with progress, trying to win before learning not to lose, which one is yours? You know which one it is. You knew it somewhere in this video. Maybe you tried to rationalize past it, but you know. Write it in the comments. Write reason 3 or I do all 5, whatever is honest. Because this comment section is not a performance space. It's a place for traders who are actually ready to look at themselves clearly. And if this video landed for you, if something in here shifted the way you see your situation, I want to ask you to subscribe, but not because of the content, because of the community. This channel is not about selling you the shortcut. There is no shortcut here. What I'm building here, is an honest space for traders who are serious about becoming someone the market cannot break. If that's the trader you are working on becoming, or if you want to be surrounded by others doing the same work, hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell, because the next video continues what we started here, and I will see you there. Because if you're still watching at the end of a video this long, you are not casual about this. You are serious. And serious traders who find the right direction, they don't stay broke. They become the ones people ask how they did it. Let's make sure that's you.